And then all of a sudden if Batman was like, his bat phone rings and he says, oh, I gotta go, but don't worry, Robin's coming. You'd feel like, Robin? He's like a child. And we feel like, I don't want a sidekick, I want the superhero. And I think that some of us feel like Jesus is the superhero and the Holy Spirit is the sidekick. But that's not true. The Holy Spirit is God. He's a person and he's God and he's with us. And so what we're gonna talk about today is how is he involved in our life? What's he up to? Right, we feel this conflict. Sometimes it feels like civil war inside of us. And so the question I want us to ask today is to think about how does the Holy Spirit help us grow and overcome our sinful desires? Right, we're all aware that the conflict exists. And the question is there hope? And can the Spirit really help me to grow and overcome those sinful desires? And so the final question is, well then what desires do I respond to? What desires should drive my life? If it's not the desire to earn and it's not the desire to sin, what desires should drive my life? And he says it's the desires of the Spirit. And so look at verse 16. That's where we'll pick up. Galatians 5:16, he says, but I say walk by the Spirit and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing things you want to do. And so sin is poison. And Paul's just saying, when we respond to sinful desires, even though it promises life, it's gonna lead to death, always. And on the contrary, when we respond to the desires of the Spirit, it leads to a meaningful life, flourishing. These are the kinds of things we long for. I want that peace. But notice Paul's emphasis is not on the fruit. His focus is on the Spirit. His focus is on desires. And so that's where we're gonna focus. We're not gonna dive into what exactly are all these fruit, what is love, what is joy, because that's not his point. His point is focus on the Spirit, focus on desires, and then the fruit just comes. We don't bear fruit because we want it, and we don't bear fruit because we will it. We bear fruit because we walk with the Spirit. This is amazing. The Holy Spirit has started a war where there was no war. And what I mean by that is now there's a conflict inside of us. There's a conflict between my sinful desires and the desires of the Spirit. But that war didn't always exist. What Paul says elsewhere is that there was a time where sin just reigned in your body. It was the king, right? And we may have lived more moral lives, but we weren't worshiping God. And sin was the ruler. But when we became a Christian and we became a new creation, one of the things that the Spirit does is plants these new desires inside of you. He's done that. Right? Godly desires aren't inside of me because I'm awesome. It's because God is kind and he's put them there. And that's not because I'm awesome. The Spirit had to disrupt me and do something big because I was sort of unwilling. And so that may be what the Spirit waging war against sin looks like at times. But some of you in that same situation, when she knocked on the window, you would have realized, I have 5 or 10 minutes. There's an ER around the corner. And you would have just naturally responded and said, yes, I will help you. And that's the Spirit also. Because he has refined your character in maybe a way that mine is not yet refined, so that you would just naturally say, yes, I can help you and I should. And both of those are the work of the Spirit, waging war against our sin. And so here's the picture that I think he's painting. One, it's that we become increasingly unresponsive to our sinful desires and increasingly responsive to these godly desires. And what that looks like in real life is you wake up and all throughout your day, you will bump into moments where you have two choices, where you will feel the desires of the sin, the desires of the flesh, these sinful desires, and you'll feel these godly desires. And in those moments, we crucify, we kill, we reject our sinful desires. And we try to respond to God's Spirit. It's every single day we get to go on an adventure to learn how to live life with God's Spirit. That sounds meaningful and exciting to me. If Christianity is just, I believe a few things and that's it, there's no life in that. But if it's a life where God is with me and he's helping me grow, and moment by moment I have to walk with him, there's something exciting about that. And that's the journey we're invited on.